Hello and welcome to today's community call. My name is Ugur and I have Sasha with me here today. For those of you who are not aware, we have these calls every 2 weeks where we go over some of the pre-submitted community questions and also give you a way of asking us questions directly. So the first half is going to be dedicated to those pre-submitted questions, and the second half you can just shoot us a comment in the stream section of either Twitter or YouTube. And with that being said, there is not a lot to say. My name is Ugur, like I mentioned before. I work as a business developer for APIs, and I have Sasha with me here. She's one of our co-founders, and yeah, maybe you want to tell what you do?
Yeah, so I'm one of the co-founders of API3, but I feel like I wear a couple of hats, so it's hard to summarize. So I work on technical things, like writing smart contracts and stuff. But I also do a lot of content stuff. Like I write a lot, do a lot of interviews. Sometimes work on branding, marketing, so whatever needs to be done. But my background is technical, but I find myself doing more things than that.
Cool. So with that being said and introducing ourselves, we're going to dive into the questions first. If you have any questions that you want to ask us for the second half, you can already drop them. We're going to be going over them later on. Jumping right ahead into the first question, why is the API3 token used as insurance instead of USDC or ETH? If there was an issue with Airnode or the data being provided, this could negatively impact the value of the insurance. And I think, Sasha, you wanted to take that one.
Yeah, so the tokenomics is very holistic. Like if you read our white paper, when you stake in the insurance pool, you get a proportional amount of API3 governance tokens. So everything is very holistic, and it's to ensure a skin in the game incentive for good governance. So with your API3 tokens staked and having a proportional amount of governance representation, voting power, it's to ensure a skin in the game kind of incentive when it comes to governance. So being aware of the fact that your stake can get slashed and that the value of your token increases with increasing usage. It's a very kind of holistic tokenomics model. And doing it in another token wouldn't have the same result. I guess that's the short answer.
I think this question also ties into why we pay out an API3, because if the person receives API3, then negatively speaking, the token value would drop. But on the other hand, this is also something that we had discussions on internally. If the person receives the payout in API3, they're also somewhat, so to speak, motivated to not do that because they want to get more value for their insurance. So that is why the insurance is denominated in API3. Perfect. Next one. Do you have plans to integrate Airnode with Dfinity, I think it's called?
Yes. So there's no immediate plans with the general DAO, but this is something Burak actually wrote a couple of articles about this recently on Medium, about how we intend to have sub-DAOs working on cross-chain integration. So it's definitely a possibility in the near future, but it's not an immediate plan by the general DAO.
Cool. Yeah. Then right to the next one. Will you be at BTC Miami? And I guess this also ties into will you be at conferences and all that sort of stuff. So what I can tell you from the business development side is that we will not be directly in BTC Miami, but we have other things lined up that we will release once that's ready. So being at conferences and actively talking to the crypto community out there, making them aware of us is on the pipeline and is already being worked on by the marketing team, by the business development team, on the platform side and also on the enterprise side. So yes, definitely not directly BTC Miami, but upcoming conferences along the line. And I guess I'll just continue with the next one because that's also tied into that. Do you have any conference presentations planned? So there's a lot of things to think about here in this setup. First of all, in this ecosystem, there's a side that we want to onboard API providers. So the major, like we have conferences and conferences planned on the API provider side, where we go to API conferences and make them aware that there's a whole different market out there where they can already monetize what they're doing in Web 2.0 pretty much. And so we have to onboard that side. And then natively speaking, the other side of the coin is what I mentioned priorly with the crypto side and marketing it at conferences like BTC Miami. And with that being said, what do we have next? What are your 1, 3, 5, and 10-year goals? And that goes to you, Sasha.
It's weird to talk about like 10-year goals in crypto. Like ultimately, like my ultimate goal is like I really want to see these blockchain applications proliferate. I really want to see insurance done decentrally. I really want to see dispute resolution done decentrally, prediction markets. Like I really want to see these blockchain applications have real usage by a larger amount of people. Like that's kind of the vision, the ultimate goal. But in crypto, I think anyone that works in crypto will tell you that you really can't make concrete goals to an extent past like a year or two. Like things change rapidly, technology changes rapidly, the market changes. So focusing on short-term goals primarily, but I mean, obviously you have to have some long-term vision. But I don't think I could really break it down into like 1, 3, 5, 10-year goals. So there's the ultimate vision that kind of drives you, but then you really have to work on it, in my opinion, on like a short-term basis because the space changes so rapidly. So it's kind of like long-term vision and like short-term execution. I don't really think about it 1, 3, 5, 10 years. Maybe other team members will describe it differently, but that's how I see it.
Yeah. I definitely agree on that part. So the next one also goes to you. What is the internal data structure of the company? Is there a team of data scientists and business intelligence analysts?
Yeah, well, I'm a data scientist. Like some people think that's a meme term, but I have a stats background. That's one reason why I'm really interested, why I became interested in the Oracle space in general, because it deals with a lot of like subtleties about data and data quality and data aggregation. So there's me and there's a couple of others on the team that do have this kind of data background. Sorry, let me read the question again. What is the internal data structure of the company? Is there a team of data scientists, business intelligence analysts? So there are people on the team that are experts in data science, statistics, me being one of them. There's not like an official team, but it does influence a lot of the decision making and how we structure the product. Like a lot of what I've been doing recently with writing smart contracts has funny enough been really like data driven. Like maybe I should share this somewhere, but I find it really, so I was actually surprised that I used data science so much when I was writing smart contracts, because it's really hard to predict how much gas a contract uses. Like you can kind of measure in your head, like, oh, I think I'm doing this operation or that operation, but it's really hard if you're writing a complex contract to see how much gas it uses. So what I did recently with writing like an aggregation contract, specifically writing like a median algorithm, I just made like 10 different algorithms and just tested them, like literally like ran them through different like permutations of lists and just wrote graphs, like which of these is the most gas efficient. So that's kind of a tangent, but I find like my data science background really influences a lot of what I do. And I think it influences the project in general, at least the people on the team that come from that background. Like Burak comes from a machine learning background, and I can tell it really influences the way he thinks and the way he works. So yeah, so there's not an official like data team, data analyst team currently, but there are a lot of like data experts, stats experts that contribute and influence a lot of the decision making.
Great summary of that. We have 2 more left, and after that we are gonna dive into the live questions, if there are any. So if you wanna drop them right now so we can already have an overview, that would be great. what improvements are you making in marketing? And I'm not directly involved in the marketing team, but I hear a lot about it, so I'm just going to be covering this one. I guess the important part here is to break down all of the different aspects of the project. A lot of crypto projects out there, blockchain projects, are oftentimes only facing one side of the coin, so to speak. They only run in a crypto ecosystem, so they only have to market into one crypto ecosystem. But with API3, the whole situation is more complex. On the one side, we need to talk with a lot of API providers. Since they are pretty much essential, they have to run Airnode. We have to have data feeds available through them running Airnode. So essentially, a lot of the marketing efforts right now go towards onboarding API providers and making them run Airnodes. On the other hand, we also have a team dedicated to talking to enterprises out there. And those pretty much are large-scale corporations that see some sort of blockchain use case within their company, and we want to make them aware that we are making pretty much, or trying to make, any API that is out there available for them to use in their blockchain solution, whatever they envision. And lastly, of course, there's the crypto side of things, where we are talking to platforms, to dApps, and making them aware that feeds are becoming available, what types of feeds we are providing, and all that sort of stuff. Another thing that we can share that's already also public on GitHub is that we also recently hired a marketing manager that's also overseeing the whole project, as so to speak. So yes, there's definitely something that has been ongoing and is just going to expand now in the coming months, so to speak, where we try to incorporate more and more of the, so to speak, product that everyone is talking about. Yeah, final one, Sasha. Go ahead.
Which one is it? Oh, about the audit?
Pretty much like the 3 questions about the audit.
Yeah, there are lots of questions about the audit. So it was delayed at first, and let me explain why that is because we got an original estimate and then some changes happened to the code base, and the auditors extended the deadline for about a month because we'd made some changes in that time. And so we're currently in audit, and yeah, it's just a matter of when that's complete. And luckily, like our auditors have been really great. It was where normally there's like a final report, but they've been like letting us know. Like we asked them, like I think Borak requested that they let us know if like an issue comes up, and we've been dealing it as it goes. But they've been really small things, like things that usually take like a day or something to figure out. So yeah, it's a matter of when that's complete. And then we also have a final report, but we kind of suspect that the majority of issues raised by the final report will have been addressed by the time we receive it. And yeah, in general, we're not going to release until we get the green light from all sides. But like yeah. So it's just a really common thing that happens in crypto that the initial estimate is made based off of the GitHub repo at a certain point of time. But if changes are made, they have to kind of extend the deadline, and that's what happened. It's a pretty normal thing. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that deadlines get extended, but it's nothing out of the ordinary.
Great. So. I think that covers all of the pre-submitted questions that we can answer. If you have any live questions, now's the time to ask them. I just have to remind you that we cannot really talk about the price of API3. We cannot talk about any exchanges. We cannot talk about any potential partnerships down the line or in the pipeline or whatever you may have in that direction. And I think that covers it all. So with that being said, let's go over. Are you planning on upgrading? There's one against the marketing, so I guess I kind of covered that. Maybe this one.
Do you have interplay between the biz dev side, such as dApp requesting a specific type of API? That actually happened recently. I'm not really involved in the biz dev side, so maybe Ugur wants to add something, but there was an example of this recently, and I won't say who, just because until things are official, I'm not going to say who the partners or projects were, but someone was interested in getting an API data that represents what the current prices for cloud computing are. So like on average on AWS and Google Cloud, how much does storage cost? How much does compute cost? Like for a particular project, they need this information as a parameter to their system. And as far as I know, we weren't working with API providers that were working on specifically that data, but because of that request, we got in communication. So it's kind of like this this mutual thing where like we all worked on trying to reach out with some of these API providers in order to provide the data for this particular app. So that's a recent example of an app wanting our services, us not having, not currently being partnered with such an API provider, but then starting the discussions because of that. I don't know if Uber wants to add anything.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, because that's mainly what I'm working with. And yes, we have dApps approach us for specific type of APIs, and that is like the one major benefit that Airnode makes it possible for us to approach any type of API that there might be a need for out there. So yes, definitely. I'm just going to throw it out there. Maybe you can answer it, maybe not. What do you think the discussion around Uniswap becoming an Oracle has on API3 and the Oracle space?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm kind of like a blockchain maximalist. So I feel like if you can get on-chain data that's accurate and reliable, that's the best. So it makes sense. If most trading happens on-chain for a particular asset, to get that data on chain just makes sense. And I like a lot of this conversation that's happening, because I do think, this is something I mentioned in other interviews, I just don't think there's one solution for getting all data that you might need in a decentralized application. Like data is so diverse. Like, but in the case of data that originates from the blockchain, I think it's, if most trading for a particular asset happens on chain, it makes sense to get that information on chain. So I think, and to be clear, like we have a vision that is far broader than just price feeds. And this is one of the reasons why I think the Oracle space appears so competitive, is because everyone's thinking like price feeds, like who's going to provide all the price feeds for DeFi. But I think we have I know we have much broader goals than just DeFi. So in terms of, I feel like I'm just repeating myself, but I think I really like Uniswap as a project. I read their V3 white paper and thought it was excellent, just from the ideas to the way they explain them. And I think there's totally potential, and it's a good idea to have an on-chain price oracle. And I don't think it's anyhow like a competitive thing with us, because we have visions that exceed DeFi. But yeah, I like Uniswap. Nothing bad to say.
Yeah, I mean that pretty much also ties into what we were talking about before, that we have API providers or dApps that request all types of data. It's not only price feeds, but that is, like you mentioned, everything that everybody thinks about. All right. How would you explain at high level the inherent risk of API3 staking in the insurance pool?
I don't know what's meant by high level risk. But I should say that like insurance isn't like a new problem. Like we're not solving like a new problem. There exist insurance models out in the real world. So we're going to be like with the insurance thing, we're not solving an unsolved problem. It's a matter of adapting existing insurance models to the blockchain context, to the API provider context. So maybe whoever asked that might want to say specifically what they mean by inherent risk.
But I guess it also ties into how likely is it that you're going to get slashed, for instance, because there are like a lot of factors playing into that. For instance, there's, of course, smart contract risk in staking your token somewhere. And then there's also the risk of the aggregation from the API in some way malfunctioning and all that stuff. And also the factor of how much are we actually insuring for. And the good part about how much and if we're insuring is actually that you, as an API3 staker, so to speak, member of the DAO, have direct control over that. If something is too risky, and Sasha said this over and over again, we don't have to insure that, or more likely we shouldn't be insuring that, because it is more likely that we would get slashed if something were to happen.
Yeah, that was a good answer, and I feel like I was going to say something else, and I'm like struggling to remember what it was.
Just feel free to think about it. We have time.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. What I was going to say was that any sort of staking comes with risk. Like, this is something I mentioned in other interviews, but I imagine no one watches all the interviews. I think because of the bull market, people think staking is a way to make infinite amounts of money with zero risk, but that's never the case. Like, staking, which started with proof of stake, it's a security mechanism. It's a way to have apply direct skin in the game to people that secure a system. So there's always risk involved. Like I think just because API3 is being explicit about this, like, you know, your stake could get slashed if an API like one of these DAPIs malfunctions. We're just being explicit about that, but all staking has risks involved. And it's just a matter of being really explicit about it, measuring it explicitly. Yeah.
Next one. So I could use API3 Airnode in my ETH price prediction dApp on Matic. Yeah, we are EVM compatible. I guess I can just say that right away. So if we have an Airnode available, a price feed for ETH available, or so to speak, this is maybe more a prediction. If you have an API provider available that makes some sort of prediction towards an ETH price, yes, and that is available on Matic and incorporated, then you can definitely use that data to build into your or incorporate into your dApp. Not sure if you can answer the next one. Do you have it in front of you before I put it on? The one with Burak worked on his own GitHub repo on something called Subjective Oracle.
I saw that, but I apologize. I don't know what that person's referring to. Like, if Burak was here, like, I don't know what's in Burak's personal GitHub repo, so I can't answer that. But I'll ask him about it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe that's something we can maybe that's something you can ask us on the Telegram or Discord, and then we can circle back on that.
Yeah, feel free to ask on the Telegram, and we'll ping the right people.
For you again.
Will there ever be no code play with API3? I actually don't know what you mean by no code.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with that.
That's why I thought I'll just.
I'm not familiar with that terminology. If you want to clarify in the comments, feel free.
The next one is about. Yeah, let's just try to break that down. Can you put a percentage on the completion stage of API3? Maybe I'll try and you just add. So there are a lot of moving parts that come together. For instance, there's the authoritative DAO and you being able to stake and participate in governance. Then there's, of course, Airnode, which has the V0.1 alpha release right now, if I'm not mistaken, Sasha. So the completion of that is something that the team is working on. The request response protocol pops up later down the line. So there's a lot of moving parts, and as Sasha mentioned before, with the vision part, with what are we trying to accomplish in 1, 3, 5, or 10 years, it's something that governance will have an influence on, and the project will naturally, with how the crypto space is evolve further. So I can't really say like what a percentage of the completion stage of API3 is, because there are different parts that are being worked on. I even forgot Chain API. So yeah, I'm just going to leave that out there and hope that answers, or maybe Sasha has something to add.
Yeah, because this is like a long-term project. Maybe they mean like in terms of like governance, the DAO, it's really a matter of the audit being complete and it being launched. So DAO comes with staking, and that's just a matter of the audit being complete. But after that, yeah, it's a DAO. It's an evolving project. You can't. What's the completion stage of a DAO? That's a more philosophical question, but I feel like maybe the person's asking specifically about the DAO and staking, and that's really just a matter of the audit being complete.
Okay. The next one is maybe a bit theoretic, so I'm just going to let you philosophize about that. Have you considered, I guess that means mergers and acquisitions within the space, given the launch of the DAO, which could drive proposals? Seems like Link would want to buy out API3 and integrate as an additional offering to their clients.
I don't know. I'm trying to think, is there like really a precedence for M&A in blockchain? I feel like maybe this is just me being idealistic, but I think the idea of partnership and token swaps is just more aligned with how the space works in general than a merger and acquisition. Yeah, I think partnerships make more sense, and I really like this token swap thing that DAOs do, where you directly incentivize to care about each other's project via exchanging tokens. And I just think it's a more it's just more natural for the space than mergers and acquisitions. But that's just my opinion. I don't know if you want to add something to that.
Not really. Should cover it. Not sure if I should pick the next one in regards to what is your broader vision. I mean, Sasha touched upon it, like what the overall achieving, or what overall the overarching thing is.
Yeah, just to quickly repeat, I mean, I know the rest of the team really sees a blockchain expanding what it can do, so that people can actually have business interactions peer to peer, and people so many of these inefficient processes. We actually started a recent content series on Medium and on YouTube, where we're talking about inefficient processes in different industries. And the first one was actually one really brilliant lawyer on our team, Eric, who works with us full time. He was working as a lawyer, working with large airline purchases and aligning timelines and making, getting the escrow ready. It's just like an extremely complicated process. And it's what made him interested in blockchain, is all this stuff could be so easily done with a smart contract, assuming it has the right data. So we're doing this series where we talk about how many, so many things we're really unaware of, how many people think about how complicated it is to buy an airline. No, not to buy an airline, to buy an airplane. It's an unnecessary complicated process. Even Eric mentioned escrow, there's escrow, people putting in money in escrow for less than a day and paying 5-figure numbers. There's just all these inefficient processes with insurance, with so many business deals that could be made more efficient with blockchain. So I think the broader vision is really to expand what the blockchain can do and make it more than just, shuffling shitcoins around. There's really a lot of things in other industries that can be made more efficient, a lot of friction that can be removed. And that is the ultimate vision. But like I mentioned earlier, it's you really have to think of it in terms of small steps, just because the space changes so rapidly. And what you think you're going to achieve in 5 years is probably far from what's actually going to happen in 5 years. So having a vision is critical, but thinking in terms of executable short-term accomplishments is kind of how we do things.
Perfect. Let me get this one out first. And the next one, I guess you can answer that because you have been part in a lot of talks and interviews, panels with a lot of other projects as far as I saw. So there is no poison pill in the place, right? Seems like a lot of synergies in consolidating the Oracle space under one organization.
Are you familiar with the term poison pill?
No, I thought I read that more like if there's some sort of negative competition or influence from other projects out there. If I'm mistaken, just tell me in the chat. So
Yeah, I think in the short term, because I mentioned this before, like a lot of the data that's needed is very similar. Like price feeds is a big one. That's typically what people think of when they think of the Oracle space. But in terms of long term, like I've said this before and I genuinely believe it, like there's so many different types of data that's needed, whether like centralized data or readily available data, subjective data, objective data, data data that comes from APIs, data that comes from different sources. So I just don't see there being like one solution to this. And I've used this example before with like social media. Like, you know, Facebook technically does everything that every social media site does, but people still use LinkedIn for certain reasons and Twitter for certain reasons and Instagram for certain reasons because they're like slightly optimized for a different use case. And I think the same thing is going to happen with the Oracle space. Like there's certain types of data that people want, and there's a certain solution that fits that type of data and that problem better. And that's something that we've done with our design, with how we've designed the solution, is that we're focusing on a subset of what's called the Oracle problem, which is like, how do you optimize for API data? And that includes like considering API providers and their business models and their technology. So it's just like an optimized focus of a subset of the problem. But I feel like there's lots of other types of data that doesn't necessarily directly come from APIs that might need other solutions. And I think a lot of other projects are doing interesting things. Like I like a lot of like what Chainlink does with cryptography research and privacy research. Like there's a use for that, but like you don't need it for like price feeds or weather data. Like there's a specific use case for that. So I think the space presently looks a lot more competitive than what it will look like in the future, and that's just my opinion.
Okay, he just also wrote poison pill is anti-delusion clause. Maybe also just continuing on that. I'm just going to put it on. So let's say some party link acquires X% of API3 tokens, then every non-link holder would get additional API3 tokens airdropped to them to ensure no hostile takeover.
People are really thinking about like the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess it's a possible. I mean, anything is possible in this space. So yeah, so let's say Link acquires X% of API3 tokens. I mean, that's possible, but I mean, you have to consider like all the marketing effects and the branding. Like, would they do that from a branding perspective? Yeah, I don't think it's a likely scenario. So it's not something that I'm like coming up with a solution to. But I mean, sure, yeah. It's possible, but I don't think it's a likely scenario.
Then we have another one here that we can answer fast. I may have missed this, but are there lockup periods for API3 staking or still to be determined? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, haven't looked into the GitHub for a while here. The initial lockup period for unstaking is a week. So the moment you unstake, you will get your tokens, so to speak, back, or the rights to get them back within a week, so 7 days. And as for the staking rewards, I'll just cover this also, just because I have the feeling this is going to come up. The staking rewards are locked for a year.
Yeah.
Yes. And I don't think I see any more questions. So last chance to drop us any questions. Otherwise, we're going to be finishing this up. Yeah,
interesting. Nicholas really sees a hostile future where DAOs are trying to take over other DAOs. I mean, it's possible. I'm not. Yeah. I've seen. I've just seen the space work a lot better where people are with partnerships versus takeovers. But I mean, anything is possible. The space is crazy. So maybe Nicholas is right, but I don't see that being. I don't see it being an immediate concern.
Yeah, and maybe also just to address that, there's like right now a lot of different parties involved, so to speak, within the DAO and within the governance. And if this really becomes a threat, once the DAO is launched and live and you're staking your API3 tokens, you're very free to make that suggestion and bring it up as a priority to protect against.
Yeah. A different Nicholas is asking how many employees are there in the API3 team? I think it's around 30, but Ugur, do you have an actual number?
Actually not. I can't keep track anymore. I lost count after we reached, I think, 25 or so, and I stopped counting. But we should be in the higher 30s, reaching 40. And that is not counting, I think, external teams. For instance, marketing Korea, marketing Vietnam, and so on.
Yeah, so someone asked about the no-code thing. So I think, let me see, the no-code question.
Yeah, I think Ferdy elaborate a bit on that. He means zero code or low code, modeling something instead of coding, respectively auto creation of code, respectively use of templating, parameterization, and generating code.
Something, I mean, it's hard to predict these things, but I think like Airnode will have to adapt to whatever new cloud computing technology, API, whatever, like things off chain technologically are going to change. And I feel like because our project is like half off chain, half on chain, we're going to have to adapt to technological changes in the off chain world. But in terms of on chain, ideally, we set up a system so we only have to tweak parameters. So like one of the main parameters is like how much money, how many tokens do we need in the insurance pool? So ideally, and what we're trying to do is construct on-chain contracts that don't need to be changed and don't need proxies. And it's just a matter of tuning parameters. But I think the off-chain component will have to evolve. So I want the no-code thing. I mean, ideally low code, yes. But I feel like things in the off-chain world are going to change, and we might have to adapt the Airnode to that. But hopefully, on-chain code is pretty minimal, and it is pretty minimal so far.
Yeah, maybe also just the next one of the same person planning to recruit. We have an open positions page on our website. I believe it's still there. So if you feel like you fit into any of those positions, feel free to drop us your profile. And also, we recently have a lot of people in the Discord just dropping their profile, what they do, and if that might be interesting. So just shoot us a mail, what you think you can contribute, and there's definitely somebody that's going to take a look at it and possibly even set up an interview with you and just get to know you. Yeah, and I'll just address this with more employers than 80% of Oracle projects out there, just because we also touched upon that briefly before. There's like a lot of moving parts here. For instance, we have the business development enterprise team that is specifically set up to only talk with enterprises. Then we have the dApps and platforms teams that is only talking with them. We have the API team. We have the marketing team that is again branched out into different communities of marketing teams. The core dev team that also gives some contracts to other dev teams. So it's just rising, and we have different areas of focus. So you could see it maybe like a company at different divisions, I suppose. And there's just a lot of aspects that flow into this ecosystem that you have to take care of. I don't think we have anything more.
Yeah, any final questions, anyone?
No, I don't think so. Perfect. Thank you for your time, Sasha. And
should we say what we're going to do in the next community call?
Yeah, I can briefly go over that. It's not completely ironed out yet, but for the next community call, we're actually going to have one of our partners join in, and we're going to explain a little bit of that. Maybe you want to say something to that?
Yeah, I just want to confirm with you. I think next community call, we're going to have some of the people from Claros, which I'm really excited for. So completely honestly, before I started working on API3, I was a big fan of their project and a lot of what they do and a lot of what they write. Really smart people. And they're actually friends with some of the people in the team. So I think the next community call, it might be a little bit more exciting than just me and Ugur talking. But yeah, we're going to have the Claros guys here next community call, and I think it's going to be really fun. I'm a big fan of them.
think so too. So we can go over some of the potential synergies or why we are partnered with them and what we're doing with them. So if you have any questions, naturally, I will be putting out the form again, so you can drop us anything you want to know for the next time, and we will be going over it like this one. But the first half is going to be dedicated more towards Claros and explaining our partnership with them. And should we? There are two more. I mean, we have time, right?
Sure.
I would like to repeat the conference questions, but please, if I may, receive the answer from Sasha. And in terms of dev conferences, not biz or crypto conferences.
We've applied to talk to a couple of dev conferences, and I've actually done one in the past. Most of what I've done recently is a lot of interviews, but yeah, nothing short term upcoming. But we do reach out to dev conferences. So thanks for your question.
Great. Do you want to take the Nicholas one, or are we cutting it off here?
I don't really know what he's asking in terms of indirect model.
Okay, then we're leaving
sorry.
it here.
Well, Nicholas, feel free to ask your question in the Telegram, because I'm not entirely sure what you're asking here.
Great. I want to, again, thank Sasha for joining today, and all of your pre-submitted questions. We had a bunch today, even though a lot of them could be summarized with Audit. And also all of the questions we received in the live section. We're going to be live, like I mentioned again, in 2 weeks. Drop us anything you want to know. If you don't want to wait 2 weeks, feel free to jump into our Discord, Telegram, and ask us anything you would like to know.
Yeah, feel free, and also, sometimes I don't check the Telegram, so feel free to @ me if you have a specific question for me. We're pretty good at answering questions in the Telegram. Yeah,
and thank you guys for listening in. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you for the questions. Thank you, Ugur.
Bye-bye.
Bye.